Hey guys, picture this. Ancient Rome, December. But instead of Christmas morning, imagine 7 straight days where slaves become masters, gambling's totally legal, and everyone's giving gifts they actually made with their own hands. No Amazon deliveries, no credit cards, just pure chaotic celebration that got so wild the authorities eventually had to shut it down. Tonight, we're going back to when winter meant something completely different, when Saturnalia ruled the Roman world. So grab your favorite blanket, find that perfect spot, and let yourself sink in. If this helps you sleep, hit subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And I'm curious, drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Are you in bed already? On the couch? I love knowing you're out there. All right, let's step into ancient Rome together. Close your eyes. We're going back 2,000 years. Chapter 1, The Gift of Saturnalia. The moon hangs heavy over Rome. December 17th. The air's crisp, almost sharp in your lungs. But the city's alive, buzzing with this energy you can feel in your chest. Tomorrow, everything changes. Social rules flip upside down. Masters serve dinner to their slaves. Senators get roasted by street vendors. For 7 days, Rome becomes something else entirely. Something beautiful and terrifying and absolutely chaotic. You can hear it starting already. Laughter spilling from doorways. The sound of dice hitting stone, because gambling's about to be perfectly legal for a whole week. Imagine that. Your most uptight neighbor suddenly throwing coins around like it's nothing. Children staying up past their bedtime, eyes wide, because their parents are too busy celebrating to care. The whole city's holding its breath, waiting for dawn. This isn't Christmas. Not yet. That's still centuries away. This is older, wilder. Saturnalia honors Saturn, the god of agriculture, of harvest time. But really, it's about survival. Winter's coming hard, food's getting scarce. So Romans decided if we're all going to die anyway, might as well party first. Might as well flip everything upside down and see what happens. Genius, honestly. The gift giving starts subtle. No big ceremony, just neighbors showing up at your door with something wrapped in linen. Maybe a small clay figure, maybe honey cakes that still smell like the oven. The tradition's simple but meaningful. You give what you can make, what your hands created, what took time, not money. These aren't expensive presents, they're personal ones. The most popular gifts? Sigillaria. Little clay dolls, basically, but calling them dolls makes them sound childish. These were art, tiny figurines of gods, animals, people you knew, crafted by hand, fired in small kilns, painted with care. Romans collected them like we collect, well, anything. They'd line shelves with hundreds of these little clay personalities. Each one told a story. Here's what gets me about Sigillaria. They weren't just decorations, they were connections. You'd commission one that looked like your friend's dog, or their kid, or their favorite gladiator. Hours of work for something that fit in your palm, something that said, I see you, I know what makes you smile. That's gift giving at its purest, before Hallmark cards existed. The workshops are working overtime now, potter's wheels spinning late into the night, clay dust in the air, thick enough to taste, apprentices rushing between kilns, checking temperatures, praying nothing cracks, because everyone wants their sigillaria perfect. Everyone wants their gift to matter. The pressure's real. Miss Saturnalia, and you're stuck with your pottery until next year. But it's not just clay figures. Romans give candles, hundreds of them, because Saturnalia's also about light conquering darkness. Winter solstice stuff. The days are getting shorter, colder, scarier. So you fight back with flame. Every house glows, every window flickers, the whole city looks like it's on fire, but the good kind, the warm kind that keeps the shadows away. Walk through the marketplaces now. Your senses get overwhelmed fast. Cinnamon hanging heavy in the air, roasted almonds, fresh bread that's still steaming, vendors calling out prices, bargaining, laughing with customers they've known for years. This isn't just commerce, it's community. Everyone's preparing for something special, something that only happens once a year. The meat vendors are doing incredible business. Pork mostly because pigs were sacred to Saturn. You can smell it roasting from blocks away. That smoky, fatty scent that makes your mouth water instantly. Romans are buying cuts they normally can't afford, splurging for 1 week. Because if you're going to celebrate Saturn properly, you need proper food. No shortcuts. Spice merchants are practically celebrities right now. Their stalls overflow with stuff that traveled thousands of miles to get here. Black pepper from India, cinnamon from Ceylon, cloves that smell like winter itself. Romans are spending months of wages on flavors that'll make their Saturnalia feasts unforgettable. Because this week isn't about being practical, it's about being alive. Children weave between the adults, eyes wide, absorbing everything. They don't fully understand what's coming, just that something big is about to happen, something that'll turn their world upside down. Their parents seem different, looser, happier, like someone lifted a weight they didn't even know they were carrying. That's the magic starting to work already. The sun's setting now. Orange light catches the smoke from cooking fires. Families heading home with their arms full of preparations. Tomorrow, the chaos begins. 7 days of pure, beautiful madness. 7 days where Romans remember what it feels like to be human instead of just citizens. Subjects, workers. Tomorrow, they get to be themselves again. And that anticipation, you can feel it everywhere. In the way people walk a little slower, savoring these last quiet hours. In the way conversations linger longer than usual. In the careful way everyone's wrapping their gifts, their sigillaria, their candles. Because tomorrow, Rome becomes something it's never been before. Something wild, something wonderful, something that'll change everything. Chapter 2, A Time of Role Reversal. Picture this: Rome, December 17th. The moment Saturnalia begins, everything flips upside down. Slaves give orders, masters bow and scrape. The guy who's been hauling water all year, tonight he's reclining on silk cushions while his owner serves dinner. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing: Romans weren't just playing dress up. This reversal had deep roots, ancient roots that go back centuries. See? Romans believed Saturn once ruled a golden age. No slavery, no class divisions, everyone equal under the winter sky. So during his festival, they tried to recreate that world. Just for a week, slaves could speak freely, criticize their masters, even mock them to their faces. And the masters, they had to take it, had to smile, had to serve meals they'd normally never touch. Wild stuff when you think about it. There's this story: Marcus Tullius and his house slave Gaius. Every other day of the year, Gaius keeps his eyes down, speaks only when spoken to. But come Saturnalia, Gaius sprawls in Marcus's favorite chair, demands the good wine, orders his master around like a master. And Marcus does it, brings the wine, serves the food, because that's how Saturnalia works. The rules just disappear. What gets me about this? It wasn't charity. Romans weren't feeling sorry for slaves. This was religious duty, sacred obligation. They believed Saturn was watching, judging, So for these 7 days, the cosmic order flipped. The last became first. The powerless held power, and everyone pretended this was totally normal, even though tomorrow, everything would snap back to how it was. Brutal, sometimes. But for now, paradise, paradise, brutal. Walk through Rome on a Saturnalia night, you'd barely recognize it. That senator over there, he's pouring wine for his stable boy. The matron of that grand villa, she's scrubbing dishes while her kitchen slaves feast on delicacies. Children ordering their fathers around, wives giving orders to husbands, the whole city turned inside out. And you know what? People seemed happier, lighter, like they'd been holding their breath all year. There's something beautiful about watching a slave give orders for the first time. The hesitation, the disbelief. Then, confidence creeping in, a glimpse of who they might have been in different circumstances. And the masters? Some hated every second. Others seemed almost relieved, like they'd been carrying invisible weight, and finally got to set it down, even if just for a week, even if it was all pretend. Cicero wrote about this once, called it divine comedy. God's laughing at human pretensions. Because here's the truth. For most of the year, Romans lived in rigid hierarchy. Your birth determined everything. Where you sat, who you married, how you died. But Saturnalia said, what if none of that mattered? What if we're all just people sharing the same winter air? Dangerous thoughts, beautiful thoughts, temporary thoughts. The moonlight made it all feel dreamlike, silver rays falling on marble columns while inside, former slaves lounged on couches their owners built, shadows dancing, laughter echoing through courtyards, everything soft and strange and backwards, a world where master meant servant, and servant meant, well, whatever you wanted it to mean, at least till dawn, at least till Saturn's week ended, and reality crashed back down. Those flickering oil lamps cast such long shadows, made everyone look taller, more mysterious. A kitchen slave suddenly seemed noble, lounging in his master's robes. A patrician looked almost common, washing dishes in simple tunics. The flames painted everything golden, warm, equal, like the light couldn't tell the difference between free and enslaved. Maybe that was the point. Maybe light sees what we pretend not to. And the smells, gods, the smells. Mulled wine warming over charcoal braziers, honey cakes baking in clay ovens, roasted meat that slaves normally never tasted, the air thick with spices imported from distant provinces, cinnamon from India, pepper from the East. For 1 week, luxury wasn't rationed by social class. It was just there, available, intoxicating, making everyone a little drunk on possibility, on reversed fortune. Picture that first sip of wine from your master's personal amphora, the good stuff, the vintage he saves for important guests. Now you're the important guest. Now you're reclining where senators once reclined, tasting what they tasted, and your master is standing nearby with a serving pitcher, waiting for your cup to empty, waiting to refill it. The reversal so complete it almost felt real. But this was just the beginning of Saturnalia's madness. Role reversal was the appetizer. The main course? Pure revelry, gambling in the streets, dice games that would be illegal any other week, singing at volumes that would normally bring the city watch running, public drunkenness, not just tolerated, encouraged, Rome preparing to let loose completely, to throw off every social chain they'd forged, for 7 glorious, chaotic days. The carousing started at sunset, groups spilling from private homes into public squares. former slaves leading processions through streets they'd only swept before, everyone dancing, shouting, embracing strangers, the wine flowing like rivers through marble gutters, music from every doorway, flutes and lyres and voices raised in songs that celebrated Saturn's golden age, when all were equal, when none were bound. Roman society was like a tightly wound spring. All that pressure, all those rules about who stands where, who speaks when, who looks whom in the eye. Saturnalia was the release valve, the explosion, 1 week where that spring could unwind completely, where patricians could remember they were human, where slaves could remember they were people, where everyone could breathe normally for once. But here's what made it tragic too. Everyone knew it was temporary. Midnight on December 23rd, the reversal would end. Masters would reclaim their authority. Slaves would lower their eyes again. The golden age would fade like winter frost. Some probably wondered, what if we didn't go back? What if we kept Saturn's world? Dangerous thoughts, revolutionary thoughts, the kind that could get you crucified after the festival ended. So they danced harder, drank deeper, laughed louder, because tomorrow the dream would end. But tonight belonged to Saturn, to reversed fortunes and impossible freedoms, to mulled wine and moonlight, and the radical idea that maybe, just maybe, all people were equal under the winter stars. The revelry was just getting started. The real madness, the gambling, the gift-giving, the complete abandonment of Roman dignity that was still coming. Chapter 3. Beyond Bacchanalia, Feasting and Merriment. The smell hits you first. Roasted boar, honeyed wine, fresh bread still warm from the ovens. Every Roman household becomes a palace during Saturnalia, and the feasting, it's not just about food. It's about breaking every rule they live by the rest of the year. Picture this, tables groaning under the weight of delicacies most Romans only dream about. And everyone gets to eat like an emperor. See, Romans normally eat pretty simply. Bread, olives, maybe some fish if you're lucky, but Saturnalia, all bets are off. Peacock tongues, dormice stuffed with honey and poppy seeds, wine that costs more than most people make in a month. The wealthy Romans stockpile for weeks, because during Saturnalia, you don't just feed your family, you feed everyone. Slaves, neighbors, random strangers who show up at your door. And here's the wild part. Slaves eat first. Not scraps from the kitchen, the good stuff. The master's food. Picture a Roman senator, one of the most powerful men in the world, standing behind his field slave, refilling his wine cup, serving him course after course while the slave lounges on silk cushions. It's complete madness by Roman standards. Beautiful madness. For 1 week, everybody gets to live like royalty. The preparation starts days before. Markets overflow with exotic spices from India, silk from China, wines from Gaul. Roman housewives who usually count every copper coin suddenly spend like there's no tomorrow. Because in a way, there isn't. And after Saturnalia ends, it's back to the rigid social order, back to knowing your place. So for now, they feast like the world's ending, and maybe that's exactly the point. The cooking never stops. Kitchens run day and night, smoke rising from every chimney in Rome. Professional cooks work alongside household slaves, everyone united in this massive culinary project. Whole pigs roasting on spits, fountains of wine flowing in courtyards, tables that stretch from room to room, each one loaded with dishes that glisten under oil lamp light. The abundance is almost violent in its excess. But it's not just gluttony. There's method to this madness. Romans believe that Saturnalia recreates the Golden Age, when Saturn ruled and everyone lived in perfect harmony. No masters, no slaves, no rich, no poor, just abundance for all. So the feasting isn't celebration, it's ritual. They're literally eating their way back to paradise, at least for 7 days. Sweet temporary paradise served on silver platters. The sounds are incredible. Laughter echoing through marble hallways, cups clinking together in endless toasts, conversation flowing like wine, because suddenly everyone can speak freely. Slaves crack jokes about their masters. Children debate philosophy with senators. The usual Roman formality dissolves completely, replaced by this warm, chaotic symphony of voices, all talking, laughing, arguing together. Democracy through dinner parties, revolution through really good food. And the gifts keep coming. Between courses, Romans exchange presents, but not quietly. Every gift gets announced, applauded, examined by the whole table. Silk scarves from Egypt, books of poetry copied by master scribes, jewelry that catches the lamplight and throws golden sparkles across the walls. Even simple gifts become treasures when given with this much ceremony. The generosity is infectious, competitive, beautiful in its excess. Children run wild through the houses. Usually Roman kids are seen but not heard, invisible until they're old enough to matter. But during Saturnalia, they're little emperors, served first, asked their opinions, included in adult conversations. Some even get carried around on shoulders like conquering heroes. The normal rules of childhood suspended, replaced by pure indulgence. Honey cakes for breakfast, no bedtimes, paradise for anyone under 12. The wine flows like water, and not the watered down stuff Romans usually drink. Full strength wine from the best vineyards, Falernian wine aged for decades, Sacuban wine that costs a fortune. They drink it straight, no mixing with water, like civilized people, because civilization is exactly what they're escaping. The drunkenness isn't shameful, it's sacred, part of the ritual. Dionysian abandon in the name of Saturn. As afternoon fades to evening, the private feasts spill into the streets, doors thrown open, strangers invited in, house parties merging into neighborhood festivals. The boundaries between private and public dissolve, just like everything else during Saturnalia. Romans who've never spoken suddenly share meals, rich and poor dining together on makeshift tables set up in alleys. The whole city becomes one giant dinner party. Street vendors appear from nowhere, selling hot sausages, roasted chestnuts, cups of mulled wine steaming in the winter air. The smell mixes with incense from household shrines, creating this intoxicating cloud that hangs over the entire city. Romans stumble from house to house, feast to feast, sampling everything. No one goes hungry. No one eats alone. The communal aspect is everything. Individual wealth means nothing if it's not shared. Music starts up spontaneously, flutes, lyres, drums appearing from nowhere as the wine takes hold. Romans who normally maintain strict dignity break into song, dancing in the streets like teenagers, forming impromptu choruses that echo off marble buildings. The music isn't polished, it's joyful chaos. Off-key singing, mixing with professional musicians, street performers and senators harmonizing together. Pure musical anarchy. And it's beautiful. Gaming tables appear everywhere. Dice games that are usually illegal suddenly flourish in broad daylight. Romans betting their jewelry, their cloaks, even their shoes on dice rolls. Fortuna's wheels spinning wildly as social status shifts with every game. A slave wins a senator's ring. A merchant loses his finest tunic to a street sweeper. The gambling isn't about money, it's about fate, letting the gods decide who's lucky today. The authorities look the other way. Magistrates who should be arresting people for public drunkenness, they're drunk too, participating in the same chaos they're supposed to prevent. Because even they understand this isn't rebellion, it's necessity. Rome runs on rigid hierarchy, 360 days a year. Without these 7 days of madness, the whole system would explode. So they feast, and they pretend not to notice when their slaves outgamble them. As full darkness settles over Rome, oil lamps flicker to life by the thousands. The feasting continues, but now it transforms, becomes something deeper, more mysterious. The daytime revelry was just the beginning, because Saturnalia nights, that's when the real magic happens. When Romans discover what they're truly capable of, when all the rules disappear, the streets pulse with anticipation, waiting for the nocturnal mysteries to begin. Chapter 4: Nocturnal Reverie. When the Roman sun finally sets on Saturnalia, that's when things get really interesting. See, daytime had its own chaos, sure, but nighttime, that's when the city truly lost its mind. Torches flickering in every window, wine flowing like water through the streets, the sound of dice clicking against stone, laughter echoing off marble walls until dawn. Rome after dark during Saturnalia was, well, it was something else entirely. Picture this: December night, probably around 18th or 19th, cold air, but nobody cares because they're all buzzing with wine and excitement. The streets that normally empty out after sunset, packed, absolutely packed. Every social rule Romans lived by during the day, gone. Masters walking behind their slaves, senators getting roasted by street vendors, kids staying up way past bedtime, running wild through the forum, the whole city turned upside down. And the noise, oh, the noise. Drums beating from every corner, people singing, badly, mostly because they'd been drinking since noon, flutes and harps competing with shouted jokes and insults, cartwheels rumbling over cobblestones, loaded with more wine, more food, more fuel for the madness. If you lived in Rome and valued your sleep, Saturnalia nights were, well, forget about sleep. The party was everywhere. There was no escaping it. The gambling? Now that's where things got really wild. See, gambling was usually illegal in Rome, strictly forbidden most of the year. But during Saturnalia, fair game. Dice games on every street corner, card games in the taverns, people betting on anything and everything. How many stars in the sky? Which drunk guy would fall over first? Whether that senator could walk a straight line. Money changing hands faster than you could count it. Fortunes won and lost between sunset and sunrise. The parades? These weren't your neat, organized Roman military marches. These were pure chaos with a beat. Picture a conga line, but everyone's drunk, wearing ridiculous costumes and carrying torches. Mock kings leading processions of their subjects. Slaves dressed as emperors, being carried on makeshift thrones. People throwing flower petals and breadcrumbs, and sometimes, well, less pleasant things. The whole spectacle snaking through narrow Roman streets, picking up more revelers as it went. What gets me about these nocturnal celebrations, they weren't just parties, they were pressure valves. Rome was this incredibly structured society most of the time, everything in its place, everyone knowing their role. But 7 nights a year, all that pressure had somewhere to go. And with all those bottled up frustrations, all that social tension, it exploded into the streets. And somehow, Instead of tearing the city apart, it actually held everything together. Genius, really. The wine, there was so much wine, not the watered down stuff Romans usually drank. We're talking about the good vintage, the strong stuff, flowing like it was going out of style, amphora after amphora being rolled out from storage, wine merchants making their entire year's profit in 1 week. And people weren't sipping it delicately at dinner parties, they were chugging it from shared cups, passing bottles around like there was no tomorrow. But here's what's fascinating about the nighttime chaos: it had rules. Weird rules, but still rules. You could insult a senator, but you couldn't actually hurt him. You could gamble away your savings, but debts made during Saturnalia didn't count after the festival ended. You could party until dawn, but you still had to show up for the sacrifice ceremonies. Even in complete social anarchy, Romans found ways to, well, stay Roman. The costumes people wore, absolutely ridiculous. Togas worn backwards, laurel wreaths made of cabbage leaves, senators dressed as shepherds, slaves wearing purple, which was usually reserved for emperors, women in men's clothing, men in women's jewelry. The more absurd, the better. It was like Halloween, but with way more social commentary. Every outfit was basically a middle finger to normal Roman society, and everyone loved it. Food vendors worked overtime during these nights. Not fancy Roman cuisine, street food, roasted nuts, honeyed wine, bread stuffed with whatever meat was handy, people eating with their hands, sitting on steps, sharing meals with complete strangers. Rich Romans who normally dined on peacock tongues, suddenly they're gnawing on pork bones next to their own slaves. Social barriers melting away one shared meal at a time. Children during Saturnalia nights, they must have thought the world had gone completely insane. Their parents, who normally enforced strict bedtimes and proper behavior, suddenly letting them run wild through the streets. Kids gambling with adults, pulling pranks on important officials, staying up to watch the sunrise. For Roman children, these 7 nights probably felt like pure magic. The adult world turned into one giant playground. The mock courts, this is where Roman humor got really dark. They'd set up fake tribunals in the streets, putting senators and magistrates on trial for made-up crimes. Charges like being too serious or having an ugly toga. The punishments were usually harmless: singing embarrassing songs, buying rounds of drinks, wearing silly hats. But the underlying message was clear. Even the most powerful Romans weren't above mockery. As the night wore on, the energy would shift. Early evening was all laughter and games. Midnight brought deeper conversations, philosophical debates between people who'd never normally speak. Romans discussing life, death, gods, fate, topics that daylight and sobriety usually kept buried. Wine loosened tongues, darkness provided anonymity. These nocturnal hours revealed truths that polite Roman society preferred to keep hidden. The authorities, they mostly just stayed out of the way. What else could they do? Arrest half the city? The Praetorian Guard would patrol, but they were there more for crowd control than law enforcement, making sure buildings didn't burn down, preventing actual violence, keeping the celebration from spilling into genuine riot. But petty crimes, public drunkenness, noise complaints, forget it. For 7 nights, Rome belonged to the people. But as dawn approached each night, you could feel the anticipation building. All this chaos, all this revelry, it was leading somewhere. The gambling, the parades, the mock ceremonies, they were warm-up acts. The real heart of Saturnalia wasn't the parties, it was the sacrifices, the rituals, the moments when Romans stopped pretending they were civilized and remembered they were still at their core, ruled by ancient gods who demanded blood. And that's what made the nighttime celebrations so intoxicating. The knowledge that they were temporary, that come morning, there would be ceremonies to attend, sacrifices to witness, ancient rituals that would remind everyone why Saturnalia existed in the first place. The party atmosphere had an edge to it, a darkness lurking just beneath the surface. Because in a few hours, the real festival would begin. Chapter 5: The Ritual of Sacrifice. Something's shifting in the air. The wild laughter from the streets, it's getting quieter, distant now, because as midnight approaches, the Romans know it's time for the sacred part, the part that actually matters. See, all that partying, that was just the warm-up. What happens next? This is where Saturnalia becomes something deeper, something that connects them to forces older than Rome itself. The gods are waiting. You can feel it in the temple courtyards. That electric stillness that comes right before something important happens. The slaves who were laughing and drinking with their masters an hour ago, they're putting on robes now. Dark ones, heavy fabric that rustles when they walk. Even the children know to speak in whispers, because what's coming isn't just ceremony. It's the moment when the boundary between human and divine gets thin. These aren't the ornate white togas you see in movies. These robes are earth-colored, brown, deep green, some almost black, colors of soil and growing things and the underworld. The fabric feels rough against skin that's been softened by days of feasting. It's intentional. This roughness, it reminds them that comfort is temporary, that Saturn's golden age, it came with a price, and that price, it's about to be paid. In their hands, they're carrying something strange. Wicker dolls, not toys. These are maybe 2 feet tall, woven from winter wheat stalks and bound with hemp rope. Each face is different, some smiling, some serious, some almost sad. They represent Saturn himself, the god who ate his own children to prevent them from overthrowing him. Yeah, Roman religion doesn't mess around with happy endings. The procession starts at sunset, but this isn't the chaotic parade from earlier. This is ordered, deliberate, families walking together, neighbors who've known each other for decades, masters and slaves side by side again, but different now, quieter, more equal in their shared reverence. The only sounds are footsteps on stone and the soft crackling of the torches they carry. Even Rome itself seems to be holding its breath. The Temple of Saturn sits at the base of the Capitoline Hill. It's been there for centuries. Tonight, it's lit up like a constellation fell to earth. Hundreds of oil lamps flickering along the columns, braziers burning sweet-smelling wood and herbs. The marble practically glows in the firelight, and the statue inside, 12 feet tall, made of ivory and gold. Saturn's face is kind but stern, watching, judging, waiting. Here's what gets me about this moment. These are the same people who were gambling in the streets 3 hours ago, shouting dirty jokes, throwing food. Now look at them, heads bowed, moving like they're walking through sacred space because they are, and they know it. Romans understood something we've kind of forgotten, that joy and reverence, they can exist in the same heart. Sometimes they need each other. The priests are waiting at the altar. They've been preparing since dawn, cleaning every surface, arranging the offerings just so. These men have dedicated their entire lives to serving Saturn. Their faces are painted white with sacred clay, their heads shaved clean. When they speak, their voices carry across the temple courtyard without strain. They know how to make words travel, how to make them land in your chest. The chanting starts low, almost like humming. old Latin words that most Romans barely understand anymore. They're from before the Republic, before the Empire, from when Rome was just a collection of hills and shepherds. The rhythm is hypnotic, slow, like a heartbeat, and gradually, more voices join in. Not perfect harmony, just people finding the melody together, finding their place in something larger than themselves. Now comes the part that might sound strange to modern ears: the sacrifice. But here's the thing, it's not what Hollywood shows you. No human sacrifice, no blood rituals. The Romans were practical people. They sacrificed the wicker dolls, burned them in the sacred fire. The dolls are offerings, symbols. They represent giving up something precious to honor Saturn, to thank him for the golden age, to ask for his continued blessing. Watch the flames take the first doll. The wicker crackles and pops, releases this sweet smoke that smells like harvest fields. The crowd breathes it in, closes their eyes. For a moment, they're connected to every Roman who's ever stood in this spot, every generation that's honored Saturn this way. The past and present, they blur together. Time becomes circular, just like Saturn's golden wheel. The children are watching this with wide eyes. Tomorrow they'll play games pretending to be priests, but tonight they sense something real happening, something that matters in ways they can't quite name yet. Their parents hold them close, whisper explanations that will make sense years later. This is how traditions survive, not through books, through bodies, through shared experience, through awe passed down like inheritance. One by one, families step forward with their dolls, rich merchants next to poor fishermen, senators beside street sweepers. Each offering burns the same. Each prayer carries the same weight. Saturn doesn't care about your social status. Death makes equals of everyone. So does divine judgment. For these few minutes, Rome remembers what equality actually feels like, not as political theory, as lived reality. The smoke is rising now, thick and fragrant, carrying their prayers upward. The Romans believe, really believe, that Saturn can smell it, that somewhere in the divine realm he's receiving their offerings, nodding approval, maybe even smiling. This isn't superstition to them, it's relationship. They're talking to someone who shaped their world, someone who gave them everything they have, and he's listening. The last doll burns to ash. The chanting fades to whispers, then silence, but nobody moves. They stand there in the flickering light, breathing the sacred smoke, feeling different, cleaner, maybe, more connected, like they've remembered something important about who they are and why they matter. The boundary between earth and heaven, for just this moment, it's thin as silk, permeable, almost gone. Then, gradually, they start to leave. But they're not the same people who entered. They carry something with them now, a sense of blessing, of being seen by forces beyond themselves. Tomorrow they'll return to their regular roles, master and slave, rich and poor. But tonight, they walk together in sacred space. Tonight, they were all just Romans, children of Saturn, inheritors of the Golden Age. Chapter 6, Blessings of Abundance. The altar grows quiet. Smoke still curls upward, carrying prayers to Saturn's realm above. But something's shifting in the temple air. You can feel it, this electric anticipation. Romans standing shoulder to shoulder, waiting, because now comes the part they've been hoping for all year. The blessings, the miracles, the abundance that Saturnalia promises to those who believe. And believe me, some wild stuff is about to happen. Marcus the merchant stands near the temple steps. 3 days ago, His grain stores were nearly empty, debts piling up, family worried sick about winter, but he came to Saturnalia anyway, made his offering with the last few coins he had. Now, his servant just ran up with news. A trading ship arrived early. Unexpected cargo, premium wheat from Egypt. The timing? Yeah, that's not coincidence. That's Saturn working his magic through the festival. Over by the market square, old Claudia clutches her walking stick. She's been coming to Saturnalia for 40 years. Every December, same prayer, let my arthritis ease up just enough to enjoy the celebrations. And every year, for 7 blessed days, the pain fades. Her neighbors call it coincidence. Claudia knows better. She's felt Saturn's touch in her bones. The god remembers those who remember him. The festival doesn't just bring abundance, it brings healing. The stories spread like wildfire through Rome's narrow streets. A baker's oven that wouldn't light for weeks suddenly roars to life during Saturnalia. A farmer's barren field sprouts new growth in the middle of winter. A widow finds a purse of gold coins exactly where Saturn's statue cast its shadow. Some call them miracles. Others say it's just the spirit of the season making people generous, helpful, kind. But here's the thing. Does it matter which one's true? Young Julia cradles her newborn son, born 3 days into Saturnalia, right when the celebrations reached their peak. The midwife said it was impossible. The baby wasn't due for another month. But Saturn's festival has its own timing. Children born during these 7 days are considered especially blessed, protected, lucky. Julia looks into her son's eyes and whispers a prayer of thanks. Some gifts can't be explained, only received with gratitude and wonder. The abundance isn't just material, though. Watch the faces in the crowd. See that lightness, that joy? People who've been carrying heavy burdens all year suddenly standing a little straighter, laughing a little easier. Saturnalia doesn't just fill granaries and coin purses, it fills hearts, gives hope, reminds everyone that darkness doesn't last forever, that even in the depths of winter, renewal is coming, and sometimes that's the most precious blessing of all. Senator Gaius watches from his villa window as crowds flow past. Last month, he nearly lost everything in a bad business deal. Tonight, a messenger arrived with incredible news. His investments in Gaul just paid off spectacularly, 20 times what he put in. His wife thinks it's just good fortune, but Gaius remembers the private offering he made to Saturn, the desperate promise whispered in the temple's shadowed corner. The god keeps his bargains, always. The collective energy of Rome during Saturnalia. It's hard to describe unless you've felt it. Hundreds of thousands of people, all focused on the same thing. Hope you well, gratitude, the belief that good things are possible. That belief becomes a force of its own, creates momentum, opens doors, changes luck. Call it mass psychology or divine intervention. But something real happens when an entire city decides to expect miracles. And during Saturnalia, Rome expects miracles by the dozen. Even the skeptics start to wonder. Tribune Lucius rolls his eyes at the miracle stories until his own impossible thing happens. The court case he was sure to lose, dismissed on a technicality. The rival who's been undermining his career, suddenly transferred to Germania. Coincidence? Maybe. But as he watches Saturn's temple glow with lamplight, Lucius finds himself whispering a quiet thank you to whatever forces make the impossible seem routine during this magical week. The slaves have their own stories, whispered in the servant quarters after the master's sleep. Tales of freedom papers appearing where none existed before. of cruel owners suddenly showing mercy, of chains that feel lighter during these 7 sacred days? Is it Saturn's influence, the temporary role reversal, making everyone more human, or just the power of collective hope breaking through centuries of oppression? The slaves don't analyze it, they just treasure it while it lasts. Children born during Saturnalia grow up hearing they're special, blessed by Saturn himself, protected by ancient magic. Most dismiss it as superstition once they're older, but then they notice things: how opportunities seem to find them, how they recover from illness faster, how they navigate life's storms with unusual grace. Maybe it's just confidence from being told they're lucky. Maybe it's something deeper. Either way, they carry Saturn's festival with them their whole lives. The city's energy shifts as night falls. You can feel the anticipation building. Tomorrow brings the final day of Saturnalia, the grand finale, the culmination of a week's worth of prayers, offerings, and hope. Streets fill with people carrying torches, singing ancient hymns, the abundance they've experienced, the blessings they've received. It's all leading to something bigger, something that will echo through Roman culture for generations. The last night of magic before winter truly claims the city. Families gather for evening meals that taste richer somehow, wine that sparkles brighter, conversations that flow with unusual warmth. Even the simplest foods seem blessed during Saturnalia. Table scraps become feasts when shared with grateful hearts. And around these glowing tables, people tell stories. Recent miracles, ancient legends, hopes for the future. The abundance of Saturn's festival isn't just about having more, it's about appreciating what you have, deeply, completely, with wonder. The testimonies keep coming. A merchant's ship that should have sunk in a storm, somehow limping safely into port. A mother's fever breaking exactly at midnight of Saturn's feast. A young soldier's wound healing impossibly fast. Are these miracles or just the universe's way of reminding people that good things happen when they expect them? The Romans don't overthink it. They accept the blessings, say their prayers, and prepare for the festival's final spectacular night of celebration. As darkness deepens, Rome transforms one last time. Torches blaze from every window. Music spills from doorways and courtyards. The abundant Saturnalia brought material, spiritual, emotional. It all culminates in this final burst of joy. People who were strangers a week ago embrace like family. Rich and poor share the same songs. The blessings of Saturn's festival create bonds that will outlast winter, and somewhere in the temple, priests prepare for tomorrow's closing ceremony. The streets pulse with grateful energy. Rome has been blessed, fed, healed, renewed. The abundance flows through every neighborhood, every social class, every believing heart. Tomorrow ends Saturnalia, but tonight belongs to celebration, to acknowledging the miracles, to dancing in the glow of Saturn's generosity. The festival's blessings will carry this city through the darkest months ahead, and in next year's December darkness, they'll remember, they'll hope, they'll gather again to receive abundance beyond imagination. Chapter 7, the grand finale of Saturnalia, December 23rd, the last day, and Rome has completely lost its mind in the best possible way. 7 days of chaos, reversed roles, and sacred madness, and somehow the city is still standing. Barely. The streets are packed, everyone's drunk on wine and freedom, and they're about to throw the biggest party the ancient world has ever seen. This is where things get truly wild. Dawn breaks over Rome, but nobody's sleeping anyway. The processions start early. Massive crowds gathering in the forum, musicians everywhere, flutes, drums, cymbals crashing. The sound bounces off marble columns and temple walls. Citizens dressed in their brightest clothes, slaves wearing their master's finest tunics. Social order completely upside down, and everyone's grinning like they've discovered the secret to happiness, which maybe they have. The grand procession forms up, hundreds of people streaming through Rome's narrow streets, flower petals scattered everywhere, wine flowing from earthenware jugs passed hand to hand, children running alongside adults, shrieking with laughter, old senators dancing next to young slaves. Picture the most joyful chaos you can imagine, then multiply it by 10. That's Rome on Saturnalia's final day. Pure, unfiltered celebration. The smell hits you first. Roasting meat from every corner. Bread baking in outdoor ovens. Mulled wine steaming in massive bronze cauldrons. Garlic and herbs and honey. The air is thick with it. Street vendors selling everything. Hot sausages wrapped in flatbread. Honeyed dates. Fresh figs. And nobody's counting coins today. It's all about sharing, generosity flowing like the wine, strangers feeding strangers. You can hear the city celebrating from miles away, singing voices carrying over rooftops, laughter echoing through alleyways, drums beating in rhythm, feet stomping on cobblestones. The whole place pulses with life. And it's not just noise, it's harmony. Somehow thousands of people making music together without even trying, like the city itself has learned to sing. Rome's heartbeat amplified 100-fold. Gift exchanges reach fever pitch, not just small tokens anymore. People giving away jewelry, clothing, precious items they've saved all year. A wealthy merchant hands his gold bracelet to a street sweeper. A slave girl receives silk scarves from her mistress. Children clutching wooden toys carved by strangers. This isn't about value, it's about connection. Human kindness unleashed. Generosity as rebellion against ordinary life. The final feast preparation begins. Tables stretching across the forum, boards sagging under the weight of food. Whole roasted pigs, platters of fish fresh from the Tiber, mountains of fruit, amphoras of wine lined up like soldiers. And here's what gets me. Nobody planned this. No committee, no organization. Just Romans doing what Romans do best. Eating together, celebrating together, making magic out of chaos. Sunset approaches and the energy shifts. Softer now, but no less intense. Families gathering around tables, friends arm in arm. The frantic celebration settling into something deeper. Contentment, gratitude. You can see it in their faces, this moment of perfect community. Rich and poor sharing benches, young and old passing the same wine cup. Saturn's promise fulfilled, equality tasted, if only for one day. Torches flicker to life as darkness falls. The city glows warm orange, faces illuminated by firelight. Stories being told at every table. Old myths retold, new jokes invented. Gossip shared between former enemies. Wine loosening tongues and hearts. The conversations flow like the Tiber, meandering, unpredictable, life-giving. This is Rome at its most human. Walls down, masks off, hearts open. Someone starts singing, an old drinking song everyone knows. Voices join in. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. The melody rises and falls across the forum, harmonies weaving together naturally. No conductor needed, just Romans being Romans. And you realize this is why the festival works. Not because of rules or rituals, but because people want to connect, want to belong, want to be part of something bigger. Children fall asleep in their parents' arms. Wine cups grow heavy in tired hands, but nobody wants to leave. This magic doesn't come often. Tomorrow brings back hierarchy, responsibility, the weight of normal life. Tonight is borrowed time, stolen joy, a glimpse of what the world could be if we just let go. Let ourselves be human. Let ourselves be happy. Let ourselves be free. A priest of Saturn stands. Old man, white beard, voice carrying across the crowd. Time for the final toast. The moment everyone's been waiting for. Thousands of cups raised toward the stars, wine glinting in torchlight. And in that instant, every Roman citizen, slave and senator alike, they're all equal, all connected, all part of Saturn's golden dream, the god of plenty smiling down. To Saturn, the shout echoes off temple walls. Wine spills as cups crash together. Laughter erupts. Someone starts dancing. Others follow. The celebration explodes back to life for one last burst. This is it, the crescendo. 7 days of preparation leading to this perfect moment of shared joy. Romans at their absolute best. Generous, joyful, united, everything the empire could be distilled into one magical night. Slowly, reluctantly, the crowd begins to disperse, families gathering their sleepy children, friends embracing before parting, servants helping masters to their feet, the roles starting to reassert themselves, but gently, respectfully, because something has changed. The memory of equality lingers. The taste of freedom remains. Tomorrow will bring hierarchy back, but it will never be quite the same again. Empty wine cups litter the forum, flower petals scattered on stones, the smell of celebration hanging in the cool night air. Rome settles into post-festival quiet, but listen carefully. You can still hear distant laughter, still catch fragments of song. The city breathing contentment. Saturnalia is ending, but its spirit that lives on, in memory, in hope, in the human heart's endless hunger for connection. And that's how Rome celebrated. 7 days of sacred madness, 7 days of impossible equality, 7 days of pure, unfiltered joy. No wonder the authorities got nervous. No wonder they eventually banned it. Because Saturnalia proved something dangerous, that the world could be different, that happiness was possible, that freedom, even temporary freedom, was worth everything. Sweet dreams, everyone. Until next time. Chapter 8. The Morning After Saturnalia. Dawn breaks over Rome, scattered wine cups in the streets, torn garlands hanging from doorways. The city looks like, well, like it just threw the party of the century, which it did. For 7 straight days, everything was upside down. Masters served slaves. Dice rolled freely in every corner. Now, reality's creeping back in, and you can almost feel the collective hangover settling over the 7 hills. The cleanup crews are already moving through the forum, sweeping up olive pits, broken pottery, wilted flowers. But here's what's interesting. They're not rushing. There's this strange reluctance in the air, like nobody really wants the magic to end. Even the slaves tasked with cleaning seem to move slower than usual. They know what's coming. Those invisible chains of hierarchy, they're about to snap right back into place. A senator walks past his doorway. Yesterday, his cook was calling him names and demanding wine. Today, the cook's eyes are down, hands clasped behind his back. Good morning, Dominus. The formality hits like cold water. Both men know the game. Both men remember yesterday, but pretending it never happened. That's how Rome works. The festival's over. The masks come off, the real faces go back on. Some families are still finding gifts, hidden in corners, forgotten under tables. Little clay figurines, honey cakes wrapped in linen, wooden toys carved during the long nights. Children clutch them like treasures. Adults, they handle them differently, more carefully, because these aren't just gifts anymore. They're evidence, proof that for one perfect week, the world made sense in a completely different way. And now that world feels impossibly far away. The bathhouses are packed. Everyone's trying to wash off the festival, literally and figuratively. Hot water, olive oil, bronze scrapers working overtime, but you can't scrape away memories, can't wash off the taste of freedom. The bath attendants work quietly. No jokes, no banter. Yesterday they were equals with their customers. Today they're back to being invisible. The silence says everything. Markets are reopening, but the energy's all wrong. Vendors arrange their goods with mechanical precision. Customers negotiate prices without the usual passion. Everyone's going through the motions. Because the alternative is acknowledging what they just lost. That brief glimpse of what society could look like if you turned the whole thing on its head, if you let people just be people for a while. Here's where it gets really fascinating. The priests of Saturn are already planning next year because they get it. They understand something the politicians don't. Pressure builds, social tension accumulates like steam in a sealed pot. Saturnalia isn't just a party, it's a release valve. Let people taste equality for a week, and they'll accept inequality for the rest of the year. Genius, really. Dark genius. Some slaves are taking longer than usual to resume their duties. Not rebellion exactly, just lingering, savoring the last moments before the weight settles back on their shoulders. Their masters pretend not to notice, because acknowledging it means acknowledging that their slaves are human beings with feelings, with memories of what it felt like to be treated as equals. Easier to just look the other way. Children are the worst affected. They don't understand why the games stopped, why everyone's faces changed overnight, why their parents' slaves can't play with them anymore. A little girl tugs at her father's toga. When will the happy time come back? He doesn't answer, because the honest answer is never. Not really, not the way she means it. But here's the thing about influence. Ideas spread, like water finding cracks in stone. Roman soldiers carried Saturnalia to every corner of the empire. Britain, Gaul, Egypt, Syria. Local festivals started adopting elements, gift giving, role reversal, winter celebrations where normal rules bent a little. The festival was planting seeds everywhere it touched, seeds that would grow into something bigger. Germanic tribes celebrated Yule with similar themes, masters sharing meals with servants, chiefs serving their warriors. The Romans thought they were civilizing barbarians. Really? They were sharing a universal human need, the desire to imagine a better world, even if just for a few days, even if it's all pretend. Sometimes pretend is enough to keep hope alive. Christians in Rome watched Saturnalia with mixed feelings. The gift giving, the celebration, the focus on generosity that aligned with their values. The gambling, drinking, and sexual freedom, not so much. But they saw something useful here, a template, a way to celebrate their own Savior's birth that people would actually embrace. They started borrowing elements, carefully, selectively. December 25th wasn't chosen randomly for Christmas. It was Sol Invictus Day, the unconquered sun, but it was also right after Saturnalia ended. People were already in celebration mode, already thinking about gifts, feasting, coming together. The early church was brilliant. They didn't fight the calendar, they co opted it, gave people familiar traditions with new meaning, smart politics disguised as theology. Medieval carnivals borrowed Saturnalia's role reversal. Lords of misrule, peasant kings, mock bishops. The same energy channeled through Christian symbolism, because the need never died. The hunger for those brief moments when the world flips upside down, when servants become masters, when laughter drowns out authority. Every culture found its own way to scratch that itch. Even today, you can trace the DNA. Office Christmas parties where bosses serve employees, holiday bonuses that echo ancient gift giving, family gatherings where normal hierarchies soften. We're still doing it, still creating spaces where regular rules don't apply, where people can breathe differently for a little while. Saturnalia never really ended, it just changed clothes. As the sun sets on this particular morning after, Rome settles back into its familiar rhythms. But something's different now. You can feel it in the air, a subtle shift. Because for 7 days, people remembered what it felt like to be fully human, to give freely, to laugh without permission. And that memory changes everything, even when the festival ends. Chapter 9, Saturnalia's Influence on Christmas. December 17th through 23rd. Ancient Rome. 7 days when the world turned upside down. Masters served slaves. Gambling filled the streets. Gift giving was mandatory. Sound familiar? Because here's what's wild about Christmas. Almost everything we think of as purely Christian tradition, the decorations, the feasting, the presents under trees, it all traces back to this Roman festival, the one that happened centuries before Jesus was even born. Let's see how deep this goes. Picture this: Rome in winter, not the tourist-friendly Rome you know. This is raw, ancient Rome. Stone buildings, oil lamps flickering, and suddenly the entire social order just stops. For 1 week every year, rich people cook for their servants, children receive gifts from strangers. Everyone's drunk by noon. The whole city becomes one massive party. And the Romans, they called it Saturnalia, the festival that honored Saturn, their god of agriculture and time. This wasn't just celebration, this was revolution. This was revolution. Here's where it gets interesting. The gift giving? That wasn't invented by Christians. Romans had been exchanging presents during Saturnalia for centuries. Small gifts at first, candles, figurines made of clay, later silver cups, jewelry. Sound familiar? They even had a specific day for it. The last day of Saturnalia, December 23rd. When Christians started celebrating Christmas, they didn't replace this tradition. They absorbed it completely. The presents under your tree this December. Thank a Roman senator from 2,000 years ago. The feasting traditions, identical. Romans during Saturnalia would prepare massive banquets, multiple courses, the best wine, honey cakes, roasted meats, tables groaning under the weight of food, families gathering from across the empire. And here's the thing, they believed this feast brought good fortune for the coming year. Early Christians, celebrating Christmas, did exactly the same thing, same foods, same belief that sharing abundance brought blessings. The Roman cookbook basically became the Christmas dinner menu. We just changed the prayer beforehand. But the wildest part of Saturnalia? The role reversal. For 7 days, slaves ate at their master's table. Masters served the food. Children could boss around their parents. The entire social hierarchy flipped upside down. Romans called it libertas, temporary freedom. Now think about Christmas morning. Kids wake up first. They run the house. Parents serve them breakfast. The whole family dynamic shifts. Children become the center of attention. We're still doing the Roman thing. We just don't realize it. The timing isn't coincidence either. December 25th? That date doesn't appear in the Bible anywhere. No one knows when Jesus was actually born. Could have been spring, could have been fall, but early Christians chose December 25th deliberately. Right after Saturnalia ended, the Romans were already in party mode. The infrastructure was there, the traditions were established. Instead of fighting the biggest festival of the year, Christians just rebranded it. Brilliant strategy, actually. Why start from scratch when you can adapt what's already working? Pope Julius I made it official in 350 AD. Christmas would be December 25th. But here's what he didn't announce. They were keeping almost everything else from Saturnalia: the gift exchange, the feasting, the decorations, even the party atmosphere. They just changed who they were celebrating. Instead of Saturn, the Roman god, they honored Jesus, the Christian Savior. Same festival, different deity. The people barely noticed the switch. Why would they? All their favorite traditions remained exactly the same. Smart political move. Let's talk decorations. Romans during Saturnalia covered their homes with greenery, laurel branches, holly, ivy. They believed evergreen plants held special power during winter, life persisting through the darkest months. Sound familiar? Christmas trees, wreath, garland draped over doorways. We're doing the exact same thing Romans did 2,000 years ago. Even the colors, green and red, were Saturnalia colors. Green for the plants, red for the wine and celebration. Christianity didn't invent Christmas decorating. They inherited it. The candles and lights, pure Saturnalia tradition. Romans believed light could drive away winter darkness. They lit candles throughout their homes, oil lamps in every room, bonfires in the streets. The entire city glowed. Christians kept this tradition alive through Christmas. Candlelit church services, lights decorating homes. Eventually, electric Christmas lights covering entire neighborhoods. We're still fighting the same darkness Romans fought. Still using light as our weapon. Still believing brightness can overcome the cold and gloom of winter. The social aspect, identical playbook. Saturnalia brought people together. Families traveled across the empire to reunite. Friends gathered for massive parties. Communities organized public celebrations. Everyone participated regardless of social status. Christians adopted this completely. Christmas became the time for family reunions, church gatherings, community celebrations. The Roman model of using winter festival to strengthen social bonds. Christianity copied it perfectly. We still follow the same pattern, same timing, same emphasis on togetherness, same belief that shared celebration strengthens relationships. Food traditions carried forward with stunning accuracy. Romans made special honey cakes during Saturnalia, shaped like animals, decorated with nuts and fruits. They prepared spiced wine, roasted chestnuts, sweet pastries filled with dried figs. Christian Christmas celebrations kept all of this: gingerbread cookies, shaped like people and animals, mulled wine, roasted nuts, fruit cakes, even the spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, the same ones Romans used. Your Christmas kitchen smells exactly like a Roman kitchen during Saturnalia. 2,000 years later, same recipes, same aromas. Gift exchange evolved but stayed fundamentally Roman. Saturnalia gifts started simple: clay figurines called sigillaria, small wax candles, token presents between friends and family. Over time, they became more elaborate. expensive jewelry, fine clothing, rare books. Christians maintain this progression. Simple gifts at first, handmade items, food, gradually becoming more complex and valuable. The psychology remained identical. Gifts expressed affection, maintained relationships, and demonstrated generosity. We're still following the Roman gift-giving rulebook. Every December, without realizing it, religious authorities eventually grew concerned, both Roman and Christian leaders. Saturnalia got too wild, too excessive. Roman senators complained about the gambling, the drinking, the complete breakdown of social order. Christian bishops worried Christmas was becoming too pagan, too focused on material pleasures instead of spiritual reflection. But the people, they loved their traditions. They resisted change. They wanted their gifts and feasts and parties. So both religions compromised. They kept the fun stuff, just added more prayers around the edges. The transformation happened slowly, over centuries. Saturnalia gradually became Christmas. Roman traditions merged with Christian theology. Pagan symbols gained Christian meanings. Gift-giving honored the wise men, bringing presents to baby Jesus. Evergreen decorations represented eternal life through Christ. Feasting celebrated God's abundance. Light displays symbolized Jesus as the light of the world. Same actions, new meanings. The Romans would recognize our Christmas celebrations instantly. They'd feel right at home at a modern Christmas party because it's their party. We just changed the guest of honor. Modern Christmas elements we can trace directly back. Santa Claus arrives from the Roman tradition of gift bringers during Saturnalia. Christmas trees from Roman evergreen decorating. Christmas lights from Roman candles and bonfires. Christmas dinner from Roman feasting. Christmas presents from Roman gift exchange. Christmas parties from Roman celebrations. Even Christmas colors, red and green, were Saturnalia colors. We think we're celebrating a Christian holiday. Really, we're participating in a Roman festival that's been lightly rebranded. The DNA is identical. So next December, when you're decorating your tree, lighting your candles, wrapping your presents, remember the Romans. Remember Saturnalia. Remember that cultures don't replace each other cleanly. They blend, they adapt, they borrow. Christmas isn't purely Christian any more than Saturnalia was purely Roman. It's a beautiful mixture. Ancient traditions carrying forward through time, connecting us to people who lived 2,000 years ago but celebrated almost exactly like we do, under the same winter stars. Chapter 10: Modern Echoes of Saturnalia. Here's something wild. That ancient Roman festival we've been talking about, it never really died, it just transformed, put on different clothes, changed its name. But walk through any December shopping mall, any New Year's party, any office holiday celebration, and you'll see it. Saturnalia, hiding in plain sight. The same energy, the same desperate need to flip everything upside down. Christmas morning. Kids ripping open presents while parents stumble around in bathrobes, coffee in hand. Sound familiar? It should, because this whole gift-giving frenzy? Pure Saturnalia. Romans exchanged presents during their winter festival, called them sigillaria, little clay figures. Now we've got Amazon wish lists and Black Friday stampedes. Same impulse, different century. The need to give, receive, celebrate together when the world feels darkest. Office holiday parties. Think about them for a second. Suddenly your boss is doing karaoke. The accountant from third floor is wearing a lampshade. Everyone's a little too loud, a little too honest. Social hierarchies? Temporarily suspended. This isn't just people having fun. This is Saturnalia. The same ritual reversal, the same need to let chaos loose just for one night. Then back to business Monday morning. New Year's Eve gets even weirder. Strangers kissing at midnight, grown adults wearing silly hats, making noise with plastic horns. Time itself gets reversed. We count backwards. 10, 9, 8, and then fresh start. New rules. New year. Romans did this too during Saturnalia. Temporary madness followed by renewal. The calendar resets. Everything becomes possible again. Same pattern, different party. Carnival season. Mardi Gras. Rio. Venice. People wearing masks, playing different roles, breaking every social rule in the book. Then Ash Wednesday hits, and everyone goes back to normal. This is Saturnalia's DNA right here. The church tried to eliminate pagan festivals, but they're too powerful, too necessary, so they got absorbed instead. Transformed, hidden inside Christian calendars, but the energy, still there. College spring break, Burning Man, music festivals, comic conventions where accountants dress like superheroes. Halloween, when adults become kids again. Every culture has these pressure valves, these moments when normal doesn't apply, when you can be someone else, act differently, break the routine that's slowly crushing your soul. Romans understood this. They built it into their calendar. We just scattered it around ours. Black Friday shopping. Hear me out on this one. Normal, rational people camping outside stores, fighting over discounted electronics. Social norms? Gone. Politeness? Forgotten. It's organized chaos, temporary madness with a purpose. Romans gambled during Saturnalia. Dice games usually forbidden. We gamble too, just with credit cards and doorbuster deals. Same thrill, same suspension of everyday rules, same collective insanity. Winter holidays happen when daylight disappears, when everything feels dead, when depression spikes and people need hope. Romans timed Saturnalia perfectly, darkest days of the year. We do the same thing. Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, winter solstice celebrations, light festivals, feast when food should be scarce, celebrate when everything's dying, fight the darkness with noise, food, connection, ancient wisdom dressed in modern clothes, corporate team building retreats, trust falls and rope courses, CEOs cooking hamburgers for their employees, temporary role reversals that would make Romans smile. The boss serves lunch. The intern gives feedback to executives. Everyone pretends hierarchy doesn't exist for one weekend. Then Monday hits, and everyone goes back to their boxes. But for a moment, pure Saturnalia, the world turned upside down. Wedding receptions. Think about what happens there. Reserved aunts dancing wildly, shy cousins giving speeches, kids staying up past midnight. Normal family dynamics flip. Everyone's celebrating, spending too much, acting out of character. The bride and groom become temporary royalty. Everyone else becomes temporary family. Rules bend, inhibitions drop. It's a one-night Saturnalia, chaos in service of joy. Community bonding through shared madness, food fights, pie throwing contests, tomato festivals in Spain, adults playing with their food like children. Why does this feel so good? Because we're built for occasional chaos, built to break our own rules sometimes. Romans got this. They made gluttony holy during Saturnalia, made excess sacred. We still do it. Competitive eating contests, all-you-can-eat buffets, Thanksgiving until you can't move, permission to indulge. Social media during holidays, everyone sharing everything, privacy disappears. People post pictures of their messy houses, their drunk relatives, Their failures and successes, temporary transparency. The masks come off. Romans did this too. During Saturnalia, you could say anything to anyone, mock authority, speak truth to power. Our version just happens online. Same need, different platform. Temporary freedom from social performance. Sports celebrations, victory parades where entire cities go insane. Grown men crying, strangers hugging, cars honked for hours, property destroyed in the name of joy. This is what happens when community wins together, when normal rules suspend for shared ecstasy. Romans celebrated military victories during festivals. We celebrate touchdowns and home runs. Same energy, same need to lose control together. Collective catharsis. Flash mobs, synchronized swimming in train stations, pillow fights in public squares, strangers cooperating in planned chaos. This is modern Saturnalia, organized disruption. Temporary communities formed around breaking normal behavior. Romans gathered in the Forum for festival games. We gather online to plan spontaneous joy. Technology changes. Human nature, pretty much the same. We need each other. We need permission to play. The thing is, we never really stopped needing Saturnalia. Modern life is controlled, scheduled, managed. We live in boxes, work in boxes, travel in boxes. Everything's optimized, efficient, safe. But humans aren't efficient. We're messy. We need chaos. We need moments when everything can flip, when the impossible becomes possible, when ordinary people can become extraordinary, even if it's just for one night. So next time you're at a holiday party, watching your accountant do karaoke, smile. You're witnessing something ancient, something necessary, something that connects you to Romans who lived 2,000 years ago. They understood what we're still learning. That order without chaos becomes tyranny. That rules without exception become prisons. That sometimes you have to flip the world upside down to remember what right side up feels like. Chapter 11, Why Saturnalia Was Suppressed. So here's where things get complicated. For centuries, Saturnalia was the heartbeat of Roman winter. Everyone loved it. Masters, slaves, kids, grandparents. It was the one week where Rome completely let loose. But by the 4th century, the party was over, and it wasn't just one thing that killed it. Multiple forces were closing in on this ancient celebration. Let's start with the obvious problem. When you flip society upside down for 7 straight days, things get messy. Really messy. The gambling, the drinking, the complete breakdown of social order. What started as harmless role reversal was turning into genuine chaos. Rich families were getting robbed, businesses couldn't function, the streets became, well, let's just say Roman authorities were not amused by what they saw. Think about it from a government perspective. You're trying to run an empire, massive, complex, stretched across 3 continents, and every December, your entire administrative class just stops working. They're too drunk, too busy playing dice, or too busy serving dinner to their slaves. Essential services grinding to a halt, tax collection suspended, military recruitment postponed for a week every single year. That's not sustainable long term. Then there were the violence issues. When people get permission to mock authority, some take it too far. Saturnalia started generating genuine social unrest. Slaves weren't just playing master for a day anymore. Some were using the festival as cover for actual rebellion. Others were settling real grievances. The line between playful reversal and dangerous uprising was getting blurrier every year. That made Roman officials very, very nervous. But the biggest threat? Christianity. By the 3rd century, This new religion was spreading like wildfire through the Roman world, and Christians absolutely hated Saturnalia. Everything about it went against their core beliefs: the drunkenness, the gambling, the sexual freedom, the worship of a pagan god, the complete abandonment of moral restraint. Christian leaders saw Saturnalia as everything wrong with Roman society rolled into one horrifying week-long celebration. Christian writers started attacking Saturnalia in their sermons. They called it demonic, sinful, a celebration of everything God despised. They urged their followers to avoid it completely. Don't participate. Don't give gifts. Don't attend the feasts. Don't gamble. Stay home. Pray instead. As Christianity grew stronger, Saturnalia found itself with a powerful, organized, and absolutely relentless enemy, one that wouldn't compromise or look the other way. The economic disruption was becoming impossible to ignore, too. Sure, merchants loved the gift-buying sprees, but the week-long work stoppage? That was costing the empire serious money. Ports shut down, construction projects halted, agriculture stalled, trade routes backed up. The brief economic boost from holiday spending wasn't worth the massive productivity loss. Roman economists, yes, they had economists, were calculating the real cost of Saturnalia. Constantine changed everything. When he became emperor in 306 AD, he also became Christianity's most powerful ally. Suddenly, Christian objections to Saturnalia had imperial backing. Constantine didn't ban the festival outright. That would have caused riots. Instead, he started chipping away at it, shortening the celebration, restricting certain activities, making it less appealing, death by 1,000 cuts instead of one dramatic execution. The Roman Senate was split. Traditional senators wanted to preserve Saturnalia. It was Roman culture, Roman identity, Roman history stretching back centuries. But younger senators, especially Christian ones, saw it as an embarrassing relic, something that made Rome look barbaric to the rest of the world. The debates got heated: old guard versus new guard, pagan tradition versus Christian morality. Neither side was backing down easily. Public opinion was shifting too. As more Romans converted to Christianity, fewer people wanted to participate in pagan festivals. The crowds got smaller, the energy dimmed, the spontaneous celebrations that made Saturnalia magical, they weren't happening anymore. When half your neighbors think your holiday is evil, it's hard to maintain that festive spirit. The social pressure was enormous and getting stronger every year. Military concerns played a role too. Roman legions were increasingly Christian. Soldiers who used to celebrate Saturnalia were now refusing to participate. Some were even deserting during the festival rather than take part in pagan rituals. This created discipline problems, morale issues, and gaps in border defense. Military commanders were complaining loudly to their superiors. Something had to give. The final blow came from an unexpected source: Christmas. Christian leaders realized they couldn't just destroy Saturnalia. They needed to replace it with something better, something that satisfied the same human needs, but in a Christian context. So they moved Jesus' birthday celebration to late December, right on top of Saturnalia. Brilliant strategy, really. Give people a winter festival they can celebrate without compromising their faith. By 400 AD, the writing was on the wall. Official imperial edicts started restricting Saturnalia activities. No more public gambling, no more master-slave reversals, no more week-long celebrations. The festival was being systematically dismantled, piece by piece. What had once been Rome's most beloved holiday was becoming a shadow of its former self. The golden age of Saturnalia was ending. Some Romans tried to keep private celebrations alive, behind closed doors, in small groups, away from Christian neighbors and government officials. But it wasn't the same. Saturnalia's power came from its public nature, from everyone participating together, from the entire society flipping upside down simultaneously. Without that collective energy, the festival lost its magic. It became just another dinner party with expensive gifts. The irony is stunning when you think about it. Christianity didn't just destroy Saturnalia, it absorbed the best parts of it: the gift giving, the winter timing, the family feasts, the charitable spirit, even the idea of social inversion, masters serving others, the wealthy helping the poor. Christmas became Saturnalia's spiritual successor. Different God, same basic celebration. The Romans would have found that fascinating. So that's how Saturnalia died. Not from one dramatic moment, but from a perfect storm of social, religious, economic, and political pressures. The empire outgrew its ancient festival. Society evolved beyond the need for ritualized chaos. Christianity offered a more appealing alternative. And slowly, quietly, one of history's greatest celebrations faded into memory, but its spirit that lived on in new forms. Chapter 12: The Transition to a Quieter Christmas. Something shifts in the air around 400 AD. The wild street parties, the drunk slaves ordering their masters around, the chaos that made Saturnalia so intoxicating, it's starting to fade. Not all at once. Nothing that big changes overnight. But you can feel it happening. The empire's getting older, more tired, more careful. And in that exhaustion, something gentler starts to take root. Christianity's spreading through Rome like morning mist. Slow, steady. And these new believers? They're not exactly fans of the whole world turned upside down thing. Makes them nervous. All that drinking and gambling and servants acting like kings. It goes against everything they're trying to build. But here's the thing, people still want to celebrate. They still need that midwinter light, that warmth when everything else feels cold and dark. So what do you do when you want to kill a festival, but keep the feelings? You don't fight it head on. That never works. Instead, you redirect it, shape it. The church leaders are smart about this. They know people aren't going to give up their winter celebration, so they offer something different, something that feels familiar but sounds holier. December 25th, Christ's birthday, same time of year, same need for light and joy. The transition happens slowly, over decades. Saturnalia's wild energy starts getting channeled into something softer. The gift-giving stays, but it becomes about generosity, not chaos. The feasting remains, but now it's about family gathering, not public madness. The masters still give their slaves a day off, but it's framed as Christian charity, not social revolution. Same actions, completely different meaning. You can see it in the art from this period. Early Christmas imagery isn't wild and chaotic like Saturnalia scenes. It's peaceful, serene. Mary and Joseph, angels announcing good news, not drunk revelers announcing the world's ending. Shepherds quietly watching their flocks, not crowds rioting in the streets. The visual language completely changes, from chaos to calm, from rebellion to reverence, from public madness to private worship. But here's what's fascinating. Some of that Saturnalia energy refuses to die completely. It goes underground, shows up in weird places. Medieval Christmas still had echoes of that old wildness. The Feast of Fools, lords of misrule, boys bishops who got to run the church for a day. Different names, same spirit. That human need to turn things upside down, it finds a way. always finds a way. The real genius of early Christmas, it kept what people loved about Saturnalia while making it smaller, more intimate. Instead of the whole city going crazy together, you celebrate with your family, your close friends. The warmth and joy become personal instead of political. The rebellion becomes internal instead of social. You're not overthrowing the emperor, you're just being kind to each other for a few days. By 500 AD, you can see the change everywhere. Roman Christmas looks nothing like Saturnalia. No more public sacrifices, no more slaves giving orders, no more gambling in the streets. Instead, quiet church services, family meals, small gifts passed between loved ones, children getting special treats. The volume's been turned way down, but somehow the magic's still there, just gentler. The food changes too. Saturnalia feasts were about excess. How much can you eat? How drunk can you get? How loud can you be? Early Christmas meals are different, still special but thoughtful, symbolic. Bread that represents Christ's body, wine that represents his blood. Every bite means something. The celebration moves from your stomach to your soul, from quantity to quality. Gift giving evolves beautifully during this transition. Saturnalia gifts were often gag gifts, jokes, things to make people laugh or shock them. Christmas gifts become meaningful, practical, a new cloak for winter, a book of prayers, tools for work, food for the poor. The exchange becomes about care, not comedy, about meeting real needs, not just having fun. The heart changes completely. Music shifts too. Saturnalia songs were drinking songs, bawdy, loud, designed to get crowds singing along. Early Christmas music is contemplative. Hymns about peace, about hope, about light coming into darkness. You don't shout these songs, you breathe them. Let them settle into your chest like warm honey. The same human voice, but completely different intentions. Children experience this transition most clearly. During Saturnalia, kids saw adults acting crazy, breaking rules, being loud and wild and unpredictable. During early Christmas, they see adults being extra kind, extra patient, extra generous. The holiday becomes a lesson in goodness instead of a lesson in chaos. Both approaches teach something, but the messages are completely different. Architecture tells the story too. Saturnalia happened in public squares, streets, bathhouses, anywhere crowds could gather and get wild. Early Christmas happens in homes, churches, private spaces where people can be quiet together. The celebration moves indoors, becomes intimate, personal, sacred, the same human need for connection, but expressed through whispers instead of shouts. What's lost in this transition? The democracy of chaos. During Saturnalia, social rules disappeared. Rich and poor mixed freely. Power structures crumbled for a week. Early Christmas keeps those structures mostly intact. It's kinder within the existing order, but it doesn't challenge that order. The revolution becomes evolution. Gentler, yes, but also safer for those in power. By the time this transformation is complete, something remarkable has happened. The same midwinter celebration that once threatened Roman authority now supports Christian authority. Same timing, same human needs being met, but completely different political implications. The holiday has been domesticated, tamed, made safe for the New World Order. Genius, really. Dark genius, but genius. And yet, that original Saturnalia spirit never completely dies. It hibernates, waiting. Centuries later, it'll emerge again in medieval Christmas markets, Victorian Christmas parties, modern Christmas shopping frenzies, that wild joy, that need to break free from ordinary life. It just keeps finding new forms. Because maybe we need both, the quiet and the chaos, the peace and the party. Chapter 13, The Legacy of Saturnalia. So here we are. The candles have burned down, the wine's been shared, the roles have flipped back to normal. But Saturnalia didn't just disappear when December ended. Its fingerprints are all over our modern world. Christmas trees, gift exchanges, office parties where the boss serves drinks. Sound familiar? The Romans may be gone, but their winter festival? It found a way to survive, just wearing different clothes. December 25th wasn't chosen randomly for Christmas. Early Christians were smart, really smart. They looked at this massive, beloved festival that already had everyone celebrating in winter and thought, why fight it? Why not work with it? Saturnalia had gift giving, feasting, evergreen decorations, candles in the darkness. Sound like any holiday you know? The packaging changed. The spirit? That stayed exactly the same. Brilliant move, honestly. Think about your Christmas morning, wrapped presents under a tree, family gathered around. That moment when social rules get a little looser and everyone's just happy. Kids stay up late, adults act like kids, normal routines go out the window. Now think about Saturnalia, masters serving slaves, rich and poor eating together, rules suspended for joy, same energy, same human need, just 2,000 years apart. Some things never change. The gift giving part especially stuck around. Romans called them sigillaria, little tokens of affection, clay figurines, candles, food, simple stuff with meaning behind it. Now we've got Amazon wish lists and Black Friday stampedes, but the core idea remains. That moment when you hand someone something and watch their face light up, that's pure Saturnalia. That's what survives when empires fall. The human stuff. The connection. But Saturnalia's real legacy isn't Christmas. It's what those role reversals taught us about power. For 7 days, Romans got a taste of what equality might feel like. Slaves giving orders, masters taking them, rich serving poor. And you know what? Society didn't collapse. The world didn't end. It just worked differently. That's a dangerous lesson for any empire built on hierarchy. Maybe that's why they eventually had to shut it down. Imagine you're a Roman slave who just spent a week being treated like family, being served at table, having your opinions heard. Then January comes and you're back to being property, back to invisible. How would that feel? Saturnalia wasn't just fun and games. It was an annual reminder that these social roles, they're not natural law. They're just choices, temporary arrangements that could be rearranged. That's revolutionary thinking, dressed up as a party. The emperors figured this out eventually. Hadrian tried to tone it down. Later rulers restricted it further. By the time Christianity took over, Saturnalia was already dying from political pressure. Too destabilizing, too much equality for comfort. But they couldn't kill the human hunger for these moments, these breaks from normal, these glimpses of how things could be different. So it just shape-shifted, became Christmas, became carnival, became revolution. Every culture has some version of this. Mardi Gras before Lent, Halloween before All Saints' Day. Festivals where the normal rules get suspended and people can be someone else for a while. That's Saturnalia's DNA spreading through human culture like benevolent virus. Because we need these moments, these pressure release valves, these reminders that our social arrangements aren't written in stone. They're just agreements we can renegotiate. Here's what gets me about this whole story. The Romans thought they were just throwing a party, having some fun, honoring an old god of agriculture and freedom. They had no idea they were creating a template for questioning authority that would echo through centuries. Every Christmas office party where the CEO serves coffee, every family dinner where kids get to speak their minds. That's Saturnalia. That's the revolution that never ended. The Christians were clever about the transition. They kept the joy, the gifts, the gathering, added nativity scenes and angels. But underneath, same festival, same human needs being met, same brief suspension of normal hierarchy where everyone becomes family. The theology changed, the calendar shifted slightly, but that Saturnalian heart kept beating. December 25th was just new packaging for an ancient gift, the gift of temporary equality wrapped in celebration. Look around during Christmas season now. Office parties where everyone's equal for one night, charity drives where wealthy people serve the poor, families where kids get spoiled and adults remember what play feels like. Even our Christmas movies are about role reversals, rich learning from poor, powerful discovering powerlessness, cynics finding joy. We're still acting out those Saturnalian scripts, still hungry for those moments when the world flips upside down and somehow makes more sense. Maybe that's what we lost when we forgot about Saturn, the god of liberation, the patron of temporary freedom. Christmas has the presents and the parties, but it forgot the politics, the radical idea that social roles are just costumes we can take off. That hierarchy isn't natural law. That 7 days of equality won't destroy civilization. It might actually improve it. Saturnalia knew something we're still learning. Revolution doesn't always need violence. Sometimes it just needs a party. The deepest legacy isn't in our holidays, it's in our dreams. Every time someone imagines a world where birth doesn't determine destiny, where wealth doesn't determine worth, where power serves rather than dominates, that's Saturntalian thinking. That brief taste of what could be if we chose differently. The Romans gave us more than a festival. They gave us a vision, a 7 day glimpse of human possibility that refuses to die. And now it's late. Winter nights settling in around us. The candles have burned low, just like they did in those Roman villas 2 millennia ago. Same darkness, same hunger for light and warmth and connection. Same human hearts hoping for something better. The festivals end, the emperors fall, the gods get forgotten. But this quiet moment between sleep and waking, this stays, this endures. In the stillness, you can almost hear them, those Roman voices echoing across the centuries, slaves laughing at their masters' tables, children staying up past bedtime, families gathered around shared meals, social barriers dissolved in wine and firelight. They're all here with us now, in every act of temporary kindness, every moment when we choose connection over separation, every winter night when we light candles against the dark. Saturnalia ended, but its spirit lives in every hand extended across difference, every hierarchy questioned, every moment when we remember we're all just human beings sharing this brief, beautiful, complicated existence. The festival is over, the lessons remain, and in this quiet space between stories, between sleep and dreams, we carry forward what the Romans gave us, the radical hope that things can be different, better, more equal, more joyful, more free. Chapter 14, Whispers of Saturnalia in Modern Times. Walk through any shopping mall in December. Christmas lights everywhere, gift exchanges, office parties where the boss serves coffee to the interns. Sound familiar? That's not just Christmas you're seeing. Those are Roman ghosts, 2,000-year-old traditions hiding in plain sight. Saturnalia never really died. It just put on new clothes and learned to blend in with the crowd. December 25th wasn't Jesus' birthday. Early Christians knew that. But Roman converts? They missed their week of chaos, their gift giving, their role reversals. So the church did something clever. They layered Christmas right on top of Saturnalia. Same timing, same energy, just different reasons. And honestly, most people didn't notice the switch. The party kept going. The traditions kept flowing from one celebration into the next. Gift exchanges. We think that's so Christmas, so modern, but Romans were wrapping presents for Saturnalia 1500 years before Christ was born. Small gifts called strene, honey cakes, wax candles, clay dolls for the kids. Sound familiar? Your Christmas morning ritual? That's ancient Rome peeking through. Same excitement, same surprise, same joy in giving something unexpected to someone you care about. The wrapping paper's different, the spirit's identical. Winter solstice festivals, they're everywhere now. Yule celebrations, Dongji Festival in China, Inti Raymi in Peru. Different names, different faces, but underneath, that same human need to push back against winter's darkness, to feast when food is scarce, to gather when the world feels empty. Saturnalia planted seeds in our collective memory, and those seeds, they sprouted in cultures that never even heard of ancient Rome. New Year's Eve, midnight kisses, champagne toasts, people acting differently, looser, more playful, strangers hugging in Times Square, your accountant dancing on tables. That's Saturnalia energy right there. For one night, normal rules don't apply. Social barriers drop. Everyone's equal under the ball drop. Romans would recognize this immediately. They'd probably join right in and wonder why we only do it once a year instead of 7 days straight. Mardi Gras, Carnival in Rio. These aren't accidents, they're direct descendants. Medieval Europe couldn't quite kill Saturnalia, so they renamed it, moved it around the calendar, called it Carnival season. Same masks, same role reversals, same temporary madness where peasants mock nobility and everyone's drunk by noon. The Catholic Church tried to contain it, squeeze it into one last party before Lent, but that Roman spirit, it refused to be tamed completely. Office Christmas parties. Think about them for a second. Your manager wearing that ridiculous sweater, the CEO doing karaoke, accountants flirting with receptionists, normal workplace hierarchy temporarily suspended. That's pure Saturnalia. For one night, the conference room becomes a Roman dining hall, and everyone acts like different people. Romans called it libertas. We call it too much eggnog. But it's the same psychological release, the same need to flip the world upside down. Role reversals. They're everywhere once you start looking. Parents letting kids pick the restaurant, teachers participating in silly school assemblies, charity events where millionaires serve soup to homeless folks. Modern life is full of these temporary inversions, brief moments where normal power structures flip. Most people don't realize they're participating in something ancient. But that urge to serve instead of being served, that's 2,000 years of Roman tradition speaking through us. Holiday feasting, Thanksgiving tables groaning under 20 dishes, Christmas dinners that last 4 hours, potluck office parties where everyone brings something. We tell ourselves it's about gratitude, about family. And sure, that's part of it. But underneath, we're still Romans gathering around tables loaded with more food than anyone needs, still using abundance to celebrate survival. still turning meals into rituals that bind communities together through shared excess. Winter festivals worldwide, Diwali's lights pushing back darkness, Hanukkah's candles burning bright, Kwanzaa's community celebrations. These aren't copying Saturnalia directly, but they're responding to the same human needs, the same seasonal rhythms, the same psychological requirement to create light, warmth, connection when the world feels cold and distant. Saturnalia was just one culture's answer, but the question it was answering, that's universal. That's why these echoes exist everywhere. Social media changes everything except human nature. Instagram stories of holiday parties, TikTok videos of gift exchanges, Facebook posts about family gatherings. New platforms, same behaviors. Romans shared their Saturnalia experiences too, just through word of mouth instead of Wi Fi. That need to document celebration, to show off your feast, to prove you're having fun, that's ancient. The technology evolved. The psychology stayed exactly the same. Scholars see it clearly now. Academic papers connecting dots between Roman festivals and modern holidays. Museums mounting exhibitions about cultural continuity. Historians mapping how traditions flow across centuries, like underground rivers. The evidence is overwhelming once you know what to look for. But most people celebrating Christmas or New Year's or Carnival, they have no idea they're Roman for a day. They're just following instincts passed down through blood and custom. Tourism to Roman sites spikes during December. Pompeii, the Colosseum, Roman Forum. People want to touch the stones where Saturnalia actually happened, to walk through dining rooms where masters served slaves wine, where gifts were exchanged 20 centuries ago. There's something powerful about standing in those spaces during modern holiday season, about feeling that connection across impossible spans of time, about realizing celebration is one language humans have always spoken fluently. Family traditions matter most. That's where Saturnalia really lives now, in grandmother's recipes passed down, in silly games played every Christmas Eve, in inside jokes that surface each December, in the way certain families flip their normal rules for the holidays, kids staying up late, parents being playful, everyone eating dessert first. These aren't conscious connections to ancient Rome, they're just family DNA. Cultural memory, expressing itself through cookie cutters and wrapping paper. Cultural memory runs deep, deeper than conscious thought, deeper than recorded history. The need to celebrate winter's darkest days, to reverse normal social order, to exchange gifts and feast together, these aren't learned behaviors, they're human instincts. Saturnalia was just one expression of something much older, much more fundamental. Romans didn't invent celebration, they just perfected one version of it. And that version keeps echoing through everything we do. So next December, when you're wrapping presents or attending parties or watching strangers hug at midnight, remember, you're not just celebrating Christmas or New Year's. You're participating in something ancient, something that survived the fall of empires, something that adapted and evolved but never really died. Those are Roman whispers in your holiday laughter, Saturnalia ghosts dancing in your Christmas lights. And honestly, I think they'd be proud their party's still going strong. Chapter 15, A Tranquil Farewell to Saturnalia. Our journey through ancient Rome's most beloved festival is drawing to a close. 7 days of celebration, 7 nights of revelry, all fading now into memory. The candles burn lower, the laughter grows softer. Even the most spirited Roman party has to end eventually. But here's what's beautiful about Saturnalia. Its spirit never really died. Tonight, as we say goodbye, we'll discover how this ancient celebration still lives on in ways you might not expect. Picture the final night of Saturnalia, December 23rd. The streets of Rome are quieter now, but not silent. Groups of friends walk home together, still wearing their dinner party wreaths, slaves and masters side by side, reluctant to break the spell. Tomorrow, everything goes back to normal. The social order resets. But tonight, they're still equals, still friends. You can almost hear it in their voices. That bittersweet knowledge that something magical is ending. The oil lamps flicker in Roman windows. Wax drips slowly from the candles. Families gather for one last feast. Smaller this time, more intimate. The grand public celebrations are over. Now it's just quiet moments. Parents tucking children into bed with stories of Saturn's golden age, when the world was perfect, when everyone was free. These bedtime stories, they're planting seeds, ideas that will outlive the empire itself. There's something profound about the silence after celebration. After 7 days of controlled chaos, the stillness feels almost sacred. Roman houses settling back into their rhythms, servants cleaning up the last of the party decorations. But they're moving differently now, more slowly, like they're trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away. The memory of what it felt like to be seen as human, as equal. That memory, it changes people. What was Saturnalia really about? Strip away the parties, the gambling, the role reversals, and you find something deeper, a recognition of our shared humanity. For 7 days, Rome remembered that beneath all the social layers were just people, hungry people, lonely people, people who need connection and joy and the feeling that we matter. That core truth, it's what made Saturnalia more than just another festival. It made it essential. The Romans didn't know it, but they were creating a template, a blueprint for celebration that would survive long after their empire crumbled. The gift giving, the feasting, the decorating with greenery, the idea that winter's darkness calls for light, for warmth, for gathering together. These weren't just Saturnalia traditions, they were human traditions, universal needs dressed up in Roman clothes. And when Christianity spread, it borrowed these clothes and made them its own. Think about Christmas morning, children tearing open presents, families sharing elaborate meals, homes decorated with evergreen branches. That moment when social barriers soften, when the wealthy remember to be generous, when everyone's invited to the celebration. You're looking at Saturnalia, transformed, yes, Christianized, absolutely, but the DNA is still there. The same impulse to create joy in the darkest season, to remember that we're all in this together. The spirit of reversal never completely disappeared either. Christmas has its own tradition of temporary equality. The wealthy open their doors to charity. Children become the center of attention. Normal rules about bedtimes and sweets get relaxed. It's gentler than Saturnalia's radical role swapping, but the echo is unmistakable. That ancient Roman idea that celebration should lift up the lowly, it survived the centuries, found new expression in a different faith. Gift giving, now there's a tradition with serious staying power. Romans exchanged sigillaria, little clay figures, during Saturnalia. Simple gifts, tokens of affection and luck. Fast forward 2,000 years, and we're still doing it. Different wrapping, different occasions, but the same basic human impulse. I want to give you something to show that I was thinking of you, that you matter to me. Some traditions are too fundamental to human nature to ever truly die. There's something beautiful about how celebration brings out our better selves. During Saturnalia, Romans who normally barely acknowledged each other shared meals, told jokes, played games together. The festival created space for kindness, for generosity, for seeing past the roles and labels to the person underneath. We still feel this magic during holidays, that softening, that opening, that brief glimpse of who we could be if we chose to be our better selves more often. Imagine being a Roman as Saturnalia ended, standing in your doorway on the 24th of December, watching the last revelers head home. Tomorrow, you go back to being a senator, a merchant, a slave, whatever role society assigned you. But for 7 days, you were just human, just yourself, part of something bigger and more joyful than daily life usually allows. How do you return to normal after experiencing that? Maybe, maybe you don't completely. Maybe you carry a piece of it forward. Empires rise and fall. Rome itself became a memory, but the ideas it birthed during Saturnalia, those proved immortal. The notion that darkness calls for light, that winter needs warmth, that inequality should sometimes give way to equality, even if only briefly. That celebration is a form of resistance against despair. These aren't Roman ideas anymore. They're human ideas, passed down through generations like sacred flames, flickering but never quite going out. You can feel Saturnalia's influence every December, in the office parties where bosses serve their employees, in the charity drives where strangers help strangers, in the family gatherings where old grudges get set aside, in that unique Christmas magic where cynicism melts and wonder returns. We're still celebrating Saturn's golden age, still believing for a few precious days that the world can be better, kinder, more generous, more human. The Romans understood something we sometimes forget. Celebration isn't frivolous, it's essential. It's how we remind ourselves what we're living for, how we create moments of beauty in difficult times, how we practice being the people we want to be. Saturnalia wasn't just a party, it was a rehearsal for a better world, a 7-day experiment in human decency. And every time we celebrate, every time we choose joy over cynicism, we're continuing that experiment. As our Saturnalia story ends, take a moment to feel grateful for the Romans who created something beautiful enough to survive 2 millennia, for the traditions that connect us to countless generations of celebrants, for the reminder that even in the darkest times, we can choose to create light, to share warmth, to lift each other up. That's Saturnalia's greatest gift, not the clay figures or the feast or the games, but the knowledge that we have this power. So sleep now, with visions of ancient Rome settling into peaceful slumber, of families tucking away memories of 7 perfect days, of traditions taking root that will bloom across centuries. Let Saturnalia's gentle spirit wrap around you like a warm blanket. Dream of golden ages, of equality and kindness, of celebrations that heal the world. The candles burn low, the festival fades, but its promise lives on, in you, in all of us, forever.